Hey everyone, welcome back again. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for everyone who's been commenting and who's been leaving me messages. It's very nice to see that people are really enjoying these videos. I promise I'm going to try to get better with this camera work here. The system I got, it's pretty much strapped on me, and it allows me to have my hands free open, so you kind of see what I'm looking at. I think this is a better way of doing things, because it's hands-on. I am literally doing everything right in front of me, which means you're going to be seeing and doing everything in front of you when you start working on this project. So here's what we're going to do. So we need a piece of fabric in here that allows you to be able to keep the mouth moving here. Sorry about that, I had to get the dogs from barking. Where was I at? This fabric right here. So basically we're going to need to get a piece of fabric in here to allow us to be able to get the mouth to open up and down and have enough space to lift up and down without showing off too much of the chin underneath. So I've created a pattern, and so these are the supplies you're going to need. You're going to need, to do this at home, you're going to need 2 sheets of 8.5 by 11, letter size. I mean, they're just basic. These are basic printer paper you can get at the store. And the idea is that we're going to use this to help set up a pattern. You're going to need a ruler. You're going to need some scissors, some tape, and something to mark down your measurements on. So you need a Sharpie or pencil or whatever. And I also brought an X-Acto knife. I don't think we're going to be needing that this time around, but let's go ahead and show you how I usually do this. So you want to get your piece of fabric. I usually get like half a yard to work with. Right now I'm using a white piece so you can see it, but you're going to want to get a piece that's close to your fabric as possible. It's either felt or a fur, so you just want to make sure it gets close. Honestly, no one's going to be looking at it close enough to be messing with it. Or to really kind of judge you on it, especially at if you're doing fundraisers at events. They're not too worried about it. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get a couple of these pins here, and we're going to mark off the cheek area of how much fabric you're going to need. Typically what I'll do is I'll take that piece of fabric that I have, and I will fold it in half, because not only are we going to need enough fabric to cover the mouth portion of it on the inside, but it has to also come back down to the part that we cut off. So I'm folding it in half right there. I'm placing it right underneath the mouth here, and on each side I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin it. So I'm going to take one needle here on my fold piece of fabric, and the reason why I'm doing it this way, so I can show you, just in case you don't have this mascot, you have a different one, you can just go ahead and grab it, set a pin on the edge of the top of the jaw right here, boom. So that's one pin right there. So I pin it right there. Still with the other half, I'm going to go across the other side, right across the mouth here, because all we're looking for is just enough fabric to stitch onto this guy. And I'm going to pin it right there. Push through. Makes it really easy. So now I have them. I have a folded piece because I want to copy whatever's on one side to the other side. And now we just need to know where the bottom of this jaw is, which is right there. And so you can either take a marker, or if you have another pin, just pin it again. Just where the bottom of the jaw is, where the black part would probably meet. You can feel it with your own hand where it is at, and then you're just gonna just mark it for your own sake. After that, you can just start cutting across the bottom of this. If you want to make sure you're using the right amount on each side, I'd say give yourself a bigger clearance, like about 2 inches, because honestly, whatever you don't use, you're just going to cut off from it anyways. And then just start using the scissors and cut it across the bottom of the jaw. Just like you see it here, you just start cutting all the way around. If you're not comfortable with it, or you think you're going to mess up, use a pencil If you are using black, it's going to be hard to use, so use if you got a white color pencil that would work on black surfaces or dark surfaces, you just mark it, and then you could just erase it later. So you just mark where you need to, and then you can start cutting all the way around the whole jaw to get your shape in there. Now that's one way of doing it. I went ahead, and because this is the Chinese model mascot head, I have an actual plan you can use if you don't want to go this route. We can actually come up with an actual shape here. So let me go ahead and show you what we're going to do first. This is going to be like the final result here. We have a pattern using 2 pieces of paper. There you go. And it's basically going to intimidate, implement, copy. There you go. That's the word I was going to use. Copy. See, it's going to copy exactly what we did here, except this is a little bit more of a safer pattern. So I'll show you how that works. You're going to take your piece of paper and you're going to fold it in half. Actually, you have both of them, right? We're going to do the same on both sides. So we're going to take the piece of paper, fold them in half, and then fold it in half again. See? And then fold it in half one more time. Make sure that it's even Stevens over here. There you go. Then open it back up. And if you want, you can tape them together now, or you can wait until later to tape them together. But basically, you have the 2 patterns that we're looking for here. Next, what we're going to do is, now that we know what's down the center of this whole thing, we're going to go 1 inch off the top, and we're going to mark it. So all I need is 1 piece of paper to do this. So I just need 1 inch from the top. Use my ruler. I already know where the center is because I made a line for it. I'm going to take my little marker here, and I'm just going to put a little dot right there. Next, you're going to go to the very first half here. Oops, let me make sure you can see all this. There's that 1st inch. Next one we're going to do is we're going to go 1 3/4 inches off this side. So that 1 3/4 inches is 1 inch, then 1, 2, 3/4 right there. And that's the next point we want. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. We take 1 inch here, and then we're going to add the 3/4, 1, 2, 3, and put a dot right there. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and put another 3/4 inch at the bottom. So that's 1, 2, 3, as you can see here. And put another dot. That's going to be at the very bottom there. Same thing on this side. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, right there. And now with the points that you got here, you're going to make a rainbow. Now, if you're not too comfortable doing that yet with a marker, go ahead and grab a pencil and just kind of go from the side here and just make yourself a rainbow. If you're not comfortable doing this with your own hands, or if you feel like one side's really big and other side's really small, you can always just do up to one side, fold it over again, like that, and just cut this one side out, and you'll have an exact pattern. And that's actually what I'm going to do right now. So I have this pattern right here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just cut over the lines that I got here, and down, just like that. Boom. Just like that. I cut it one side, I got the other side here. Look how close that is. You just want to get as close as possible to that style, that design right there. Next, you'll take your next piece here, and all you need now is to make sure that these guys are lined up, and make sure you can see it. And you want to make sure these 2 are lined up. Then you can take your marker again. You have only 2 spots to worry about. The one down the middle, right here on this side, and the one up here, that side. Same thing on the other side here. 1 point up on the top, right there, and 1 down the middle, right there. You get your ruler and line them up. Make a line. Whoop. Make a line from here, from that middle section, down to that dot you made. And there you go. and cut that out. Boom. So technically all you need is one side of this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut down. I'm going to go ahead and cut down the middle because all you need is one side. I am a terrible cutter, but we are just worried about the ends here. There we go. Now tape those pieces together. Use Scotch tape, use whatever tape you got. We just want to make sure we have these two pieces together. Woo! Looking good. Bam. There we go. All we need is two of these together. Now get your piece of fabric that you have, and I went ahead and pre-cut a piece that will fit this size. You can take your big fabric, lay it out, and then fold it up. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my piece that I have here. I'm going to fold it up down the middle, making sure that both ends meet at the bottom. Lay it down so it's flat. I have my piece here, which is my little curved rainbow. I'm going to place it at the very top edge of the folded piece right here, because we're basically going to have two copies of this. We're going to have one side cut and the other side cut. And I'm going to use another pair of scissors because these ones are terrible. So I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm going to start cutting. So I usually like to start at the top of the fold. So I'm going to flip this guy around. And here we go. So I'm going to start from here, down here in the corner, and I'm just going to start making my way around this piece of fabric. So this design, I went ahead and I used that other fabric technique I did there. It came out really jaggedy and crooked. And so I wanted to give you guys at least two methods in order to kind of like have a comparison, make it easy for yourself kind of situation. So that's one side cut up. I'm going to go on the other side here and cut the rest of this off. Yeah, you think these scissors are bad, the other ones were worse. Boom, and that's it. So now I can get rid of these scraps. You can save your pattern if you want to, if you have more than this one mascot, or you want to do it again for your next mascot. My round piece, perfect. I can unpin this guy. Make sure not to stab myself. And so this piece is basically the equivalent of what we just did in there. You want to make sure, like, I don't know if you can see this very well, but one side is very rough and doesn't have any fabric, and the other side does. I think every piece of fabric does this in some capacity. So you want to make sure you're going to be have facing out the part that is going to be the soft side, and you make sure that if you're going to be sewing this on, you're going to be going and using the right pieces here. So this is just enough to cover the whole jaw and have the mouth piece flap down. As you can see, it'll cover the whole jaw underneath it. So this is the part we're going to be sewing in, and then it'll be able to flap down and sew to the skin portion of the head so that it gives us enough clearance to be able to do the mouth moving. So off to now cutting this section right here. Okay, so there's two ways of doing this, especially for this type of version. If you've been watching my videos, you would know that this whole fabric is all stitched together as one piece that you can actually strip off away from the foam. So because I've already stripped it away from our last videos, I could just technically pull this whole thing off and just start cutting from the edge that I need to. The edge that I'm talking about is the one right here where we are going to go ahead and cut from at least, as you can see, the cheek rounding down. We're going to start right here, We could always cut up if we need to, but we just need enough just so that it's the beginning of the jaw, so we can have the jaw start moving. So I'm going to go about 1/4 of an inch in and start cutting away from this piece of fabric. Now, if you still have this guy glued down, you don't have to do what I'm about to do, but it's because when it's all glued down, everything's kind of stiff in there. You can try to use an X-Acto knife first and then do a slice like I'm about to do here. This is real life, so make sure you protect yourself. There you go. You start a slice right there, and then you can start using the scissors and cut around 1/4 of an inch around. Oop. Be good if I showed you what I was actually doing. See, 1/4 of an inch out. Not exact science here. We're just going to start cutting around because we're going to have extra fabric to be able to sew onto this guy. There you go. Up until we get back to that top corner. So what we just did was ruin this whole thing. I can't believe it. No, we got enough room now to start to have the jaw actually start moving here. You see? So the whole idea is that now we're just going to be able to fit, is to sew on this piece of fabric in here so that we have enough clearance to add our animatronics into this thing. So 2 ways you can do this. I'm going to do it the best way that I know how, which is sewing it on. I can pull this whole thing off and then sew my pieces on it and go around and finish it. What you want to do first is you want to start in the middle. Make sure you, let me put that guy there if he doesn't fall away, which he will. Okay. What you want to do is make sure you fold this guy in half. Make sure you know where the middle's at. Take him and then start. You can either put a pin on it so you know exactly where it's at, and you just want to start from that section down one way, sew it down, and then go back the other way and sew it down. And you want to do the cheek first. You want to be able to do the part that is moving first. And after that, you can start sewing it onto the black portions that are still there. But you want to make sure you have enough room for the chin to be able to move up and down. So as you can see, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to have enough room to do the clearance in here, if I stuff it in here right. So I have enough room to do the clearance and to keep hidden all the other extra spots in here. So let me go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and pull this guy from the foam base so that I can start sewing it together. So before I continue to sew this, if you don't know anything about sewing like I don't, I really am just a hobbyist, so I'm not even going to pretend I know what I'm doing here. But some of the things that I always mess up on is which way to sew and how to sew it correctly. So the best way of sewing pieces on to anything is you want to make sure that the 2 pieces are going to be facing the right direction, and that the sewing part, or at least the part that gets sewed together, like when you turn out a shirt, you have the sewing and stitching on one end, and then when you flip it in the right direction, you don't see any of that stitching on the outside. So what you have to do is you have to flip this guy upside down, and the same thing with this fabric here. This fabric needs to be, if we're going to do it this way, as you can see, the nice soft spot is going to be on the outside, right? Which means you got to flip it over, and you got to sew what's remaining out here to this upside down, right? Backwards. So here's the back part of the fabric, right? So you want to stitch it like this, all the way around on this side. That way, if it's stitched right here and I flip it over, then you don't get to see that stitch. You'll just see the beautiful fabric underneath it, just like that. So that's what I have to do. I got to prepare my sewing machine, and I'll go ahead and start doing that. If you don't have a sewing machine, you can use hot glue. And it's the same manner as I just told you right now, is that you'll take your hot glue gun, and now that we got all this area here, you're going to just glue your hot glue down the middle first. Just glue, 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 right? And you're going to find the middle of your fabric that you have. And just like I said before, is that you make sure that it's flipped upside down, and then you're going to go ahead and just make sure that it's fused right there first. Make sure it cools down, and then you can flip it over, and you'll have your seam perfect right there. If you're a little worried about that, you can always start this way first, where you have your piece of fabric, you glue it down here, and then you take your fabric and you're going to do the roll technique, which is basically you'll have your bead of hot glue right there, and then you're going to grab it and you're just going to roll it into it, and then until it stays. That way, if any of the bead starts to push out, at least you're going to use the fabric to kind of hide it and then keep it there. And then you can do the same thing. You're going to put a bead down all the way around here inside, and then you're going to use your fabric and you're going to roll it in with the rest of the fabric. I'm going to show you an example of that right now with another head here. Plugged in my hot glue, so that's got to get going. I'm going to go ahead and put my thread on this machine here. Oh yeah. This is what happens when you want to start doing extra stuff with costume and design, and you don't want to ask anybody else to do it for you. You got to do it yourself. All right, get in there. Okay, the fold and roll technique I want to show you a little bit is we're going to I'm going to just use a practice piece here, but basically I don't want any of these fringes sticking out on the side. I want to make sure that it's smooth in there. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a bead of hot glue right here. And I'm going to do my starting point down the middle. And I see down the middle because it's my stitch line here I'm following. This stuff smells great. Put a bead there as my starting point. I'm going to take my piece of fabric. And this is my fur side, right? My nice smooth fur side. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fold it over. There you go. Fold it over. I'm going to place it down, and I'm going to roll it up a little bit. There you go. So I just barely pushed on it, and I'm rolling up on it, so that the bead is going to be it stays where it's at, and or is covered underneath it, and it's not going to expose or show glue on the outside there. So two things are happening. I'm hiding the glue, and I'm also giving this a nice smooth finish of the fur. And then now, with that stuck in place, I'm going to use the hot glue, and I'm just going to do little spurts at a time. See? Like that string right there of hot glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and zoom in where you can actually see it. Wouldn't that be nice if you can actually see the stuff I'm talking about? And then I'm going to go ahead and slowly roll over it, just like that. Because I have this nice smooth folded inward fabric. I'm pushing on it down. Because you don't want to push up on it. If you push up on it, then the hot glue is going to start seeping out this way. You want to push down on it so it covers everything in there. Look at that. Look how nice and smooth that is. And you're going to just continue to do that all the way around with your piece of fabric until you're done with it. So I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to go ahead and finish my sewing. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a different look so that you can kind of, depending on your tools, you can do it this way. I wouldn't recommend it going this route, because hot glue can just, in a hot sun, can peel away while stitching kind of stays no matter what weather it is. But for sometimes, like especially for like this type of head, this is the one from Peru. It's made completely different, mostly glue. So there's things in here that you'll have to peel away and cut through into the foam, because it's not sewn together. It's all glued onto the foam itself. And so you'll have to use this technique in order to fulfill what you want to do with this version. And I'll cover that in a new video. But for now, let's go back to the sewing. So I got my headpiece right here. We'll zoom in on it, or at least focus on it. And I'm going to go ahead and pin it down the middle. I found exactly where my middle's at on my piece of fabric. And all I want to do is make sure that that does not move when I start sewing things together. So there we are. Sewing it together. I want to make sure that's not going to move. So like I said before, we're going to do it inverse, right? Because we want all the stitching to be on the outside. So this is the rough part. Smooth sides on the inside, and it's covering the whole face here, right? And now I'm going to start on one end and I'm going to start on one end and making sure that it goes all the way to the edge here, and then I can go back the other way and finish up the other side. So let's go ahead and feed that through. Now if you don't have a sewing machine but you want to do this with needle and thread, you can do that as well. And you just be stitching in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, all the way across. It does take time, but I mean, you want this done right. You have to take time to do it. So here it is right here. I will have to feed it in, and I'm going to start sewing. So forgive me, I'm going to have to pause this so that I can get through this section. I forgot to tell you this, but let's go ahead and tell you now. You'll have to take out all of this fabric, all this cotton inside of here if you want to be able to use a sewing machine. It's too bulky to be able to feed through the machine itself, so you just have to remove all this cotton that's in here. They left a space for it, so you just remove it all, each side of the cheek, and then you can fill it back in with the same cotton by stuffing back in. I know it's dumb, but I mean it's the only way you're going to be able to feed this guy through the machine. Some action shots, so you know that I'm really doing it and not having someone else do this for me. I am as bad as you see I am, so look at this. So let's check this out. I got the bottom part here, I got the top part here. I'm just going to start sewing it all both together. So pardon if it's so loud, you can't hear anything. Yeah. I'm going so slow with this. Hats off to, you know, mothers and grandmas who did this for, you know, your clothes when you were young. I mean, if anything, you learn that this stuff is tough to do. So God bless them all. So shout outs to my grandma, shout outs to my mom, who's shown me a little bit about this to know that it's not that easy. It really deserves a professional. All right, almost done. So once you get to the edge here, right there, as you can see, I'm done. I'm not going to continue on that side. I'm going to stop and fill in the rest of the side over here. See, with that full technique, you're able to get a clean look with the sewing. And so now I'm going to do the same thing I just did, but on this other side. So flip it back around, make sure this is all fits. There you go. Flip it back around and start working on the other side. Boom. And there goes the bottom portion of this. So now I have this extra flap of skin that I can now use and fold over. I know this looks so ridiculous right now. Hold on. Let me put it on something real quick. Like this table right here. So now I got this extra piece of fabric skin that is already sewn to the top portion of my chin here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it inwards, and I'm going to start to sew this next part. So the same thing as we did before, you're not going to sew it this way, right? You're not going to take these two pieces from the outside and sew it down the middle this way. If I can actually show you the video here. You're not going to take this piece and fold it in and start sewing it down the middle here. You're going to want to turn this inside out again. So this side's fold in, this side's folded in, and you're going to go ahead and stitch that together. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can always do that ladder technique like I showed you in the last video if you want to refer to that. You just take this piece here and this piece here, and you do that ladder stitching technique until it's all completed all the way around. Sounds like a long thing. I mean, it sounds like it's going to take a long time, but hey, it's way better than hot gluing it. Trust me. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to finish sewing all this whole thing together so that I can actually have a talking mouth head here. Before you begin sewing, make sure you find the centerpiece again. You find where the chin's at. Here's the chin down here. And follow it up and match it up with that piece of fabric that you did cut off. And you'll see where the middle is because it's stitched right down the center here. And you're going to take those two pieces, put them together, make sure you put a needle through that, so that you know where that starts and where that starts and ends. So you're not sewing in a part that is not going to give you enough room. And over here, so what ends up happening is you're going to want to use as much of the corner here. You want to hide as much of this corner as possible. As you can see, there's extra fabric here for sewing. So we're going to use that to help. You're just going to need enough to kind of give it a give yourself some clearance here, and then you're going to sew this together like that until it's all done. All right, here we go. I'm going to perform this real quick, just like that. Almost done on one side here. There we go. I'm going to do the other side right now. No! My little Bobby's out. I'll be right back. All right, we're back in business. I can finally finish this up here. As you can see, I got it all up in here except for this one part. It completely lost my the bottom portion of the thread, so now I gotta redo that section. But that's not a problem. It's already, all I have to do is flip this inside out and get working. There it is right here. All right, and start sewing this piece on again. And there we go. Now with these two pieces sewn together, and I have enough clearance here to have a jaw open and down. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill this guy back up with his cotton that was stored in here. I'm just going to feed it right back into this section. Let's just start pushing that back in there. There you go. Just fill that cheek back in there. Stuff that in as far as it goes right there, and get your new piece and just keep going. There's no fancy way of doing it. This is probably a fancier way of doing this. An easier, better way, some sort of pushing device that makes cotton easier to work with. But yeah, just mold that into place and you just keep going with the other side. So I'm going to spare you those details there. Ta-da! Now we fill that all in there. We can stick this guy back on. Right back onto that guy. So I'm going to do that now. Get this guy right back on there. So now we put this on the way it was before. I'm not going to be super gluing or hot gluing this back down. I'm actually going to be adding a Velcro around the whole trim of this. I'll be sewing on Velcro on here, and then I'll be gluing, because this is using a cardboard here, I'm going to be gluing the other part of the Velcro in here so that when I put this back in, all I have to do is fold it in and just Velcro it down all the way across the bottom edge of this. I'll be fixing up this rip right here in the coming videos. You don't have to see that part, I'll just be fixing that. And then, and if you can see, if this guy was down the middle here, now you have enough clearance to open and close your mouth here. So like that. So then we can add our animatronic piece in here that help move the jaw up and down. And you'll have enough room, and you won't be able to see this extra area in here to do that. You see? Open, close, open. Oop. See that? All that extra area right in there to be able to do all the mouth movement now. Well, thank you guys for sticking around for this whole video here. Yeah, we'll. The next process is going to be to get the Velcro down so that we know how much room we're dealing with here. We're also going to be adjusting the foam inside so we can allow a space for the actual mechanism itself. I'll be fixing this corner here, probably off video, and then yeah, and continue on with that. Unless you guys want to start seeing how to do the same thing we just did there for this one, but using the hot glue method. This one is definitely a different style, and it's prepared a different way. So you'll actually have to cut into foam with this guy in order for this one to work the same way. And then you'll have to do the gluing technique right here in order for you to hide all this stuff. So there's definitely a different process to do this version if you have a piece of mascot head that is stitched together and you have a mascot head that's glued together. Two different ways of doing it. So let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys again for watching the videos, and I hope to make more in a couple of weeks.